Welcome to the good, the bad, and the sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is going to be so much fun. So excited for it. Turbulence 3, heavy metal. It's got Rutger Hauer, Joe Mantegna, Craig Sheffer, a good, the bad, and the sequel kind of legend. He was in the Hellraiser Inferno movie. That was really a detective movie that a little bit of Hellraiser sprinkled in. And this week's guest, actress and model Monika Schnarre. Man, Monika was so much fun to talk to. We were trying to go back and forth for like a year and a half. We missed each other. Things got busy, but I'm really happy we had a chance to chat because her career was so interesting, kind of different than most folks. You know, she started modeling, like just how she won a contest at the age of 14, the biggest modeling contest in the world. And then she's in the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Issue, not, inside of it, not on the cover. Ella McPherson was that year. But she was talking about, like, now looking back on it, being that young, being 15 years old, doing a photo shoot like that. We talked about her first acting gig, which was Friday the 13th, the TV series, and how she made that transition, how she was in that while she was still in Toronto. Being in an Elton John Diet Coke commercial, never wanting to watch her own roles after they came out. Very handful of situations. Working with Arnold on Junior. She had a really cool story, really funny story about that, and so much more. Monika was great. If you're new here, before I start the interview, which is so much fun, I loved it. I just got done editing it, which is always fun for me because I have to relive that conversation once again, and this is one, all of these I love hearing again, but Monika was just so kind, so lovely. Please subscribe if you're new here. Welcome. We'd love to have you. You look great. If you're back again, welcome back. I love what you do with your hair. It's perfect. You look great. So subscribe wherever you're listening. On YouTube, you can watch an unedited version of this. Not much editing needed to be done. Monika was a phenomenal storyteller. So you can watch an unedited video interview if you'd like. But yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Get some really cool videos, shorts, other kind of projects that we're putting out, and all of our amazing reviews. And you have a lot of content. This is episode like 355. So there's so many amazing people I've talked to, but this week, it's this amazing guest, actress and model, Monika Schnarre. Sweet. So yeah, Monika, I'm happy we finally connected. So I always love to find out people's journeys, and yours is a little different than most actors and actresses that I talk to, because the way the beginning started. But before that, before we get into like the modeling part of it, where did you grow up? You grew up in Toronto, or you grew up, like you just said, in Collingswood?
I live in Collingwood, which is 2 hours north of Toronto, but I grew up in Scarborough, Ontario, which is Greater Toronto area, the suburbs. And it used to be a really nice place. It's a little rough now, but yay, Scarborough. I'm still a Scarborough girl.
Toronto's nice. I went there for my honeymoon. We got married Niagara Falls on the Canadian side because we thought it'd be different. And then we went to Toronto. We were only there for a night. But it was cool. We lived in Portland for a little bit, so it gave us like a Portland vibe, the way the streets were like king and queen and drinking beer Firkin style rather than like carbonated beer. It was cool.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad you liked it. I love Toronto. I do. I still do, even though the traffic is terrible.
So in your journey, like how does I always think it's fascinating, like no matter what career is chosen, but modeling is kind of like a bit of a different one. So how did that, it was an interest you had, somebody spotted you. How did that go?
Well, it wasn't anything I ever wanted or dreamt of. I wasn't one of those girls who looked at fashion magazines. I ran track and field and I played basketball. But then, I overheard people telling my mom, you should get your girl into modeling because I was so tall. And she thought I was way too young. So I took it upon myself to, I made all the appointments to the agencies, and I said, "Look, Mom, we're going to 8 appointments on Saturday, and they all want to see me." So she had no choice. I was determined, and I just felt honestly like that I just had a sixth sense that it would go well. And and I just felt it was, I know this sounds a little hokey, but like a way out. Like it was my mom was a single mom. We didn't have much money, and I thought I could maybe help my family. And so I we went to all the agencies, and then we decided on one, and 6 months later I'm winning this contest, the Ford contest, like supermodel of the world contest. So
That's
it was
wild.
very quick, and then another couple months later, I was on the cover of Vogue. It was really, really quick.
How did like that? It's wild. Like especially just the time frame. Obviously, getting on the cover of Vogue or winning the Ford modeling, like that's a big deal. But just the time frame for when it began. So one of those modeling agencies on that Saturday
Yeah,
said,
so
"Hey, we want you."
yeah, they all sort of did, and
I
I
bet.
my mom wanted me. I wanted to be with the one with the nicest office, which was Elite. They had a fancy office, and my mom, though, I thank goodness she chose someone that was more maternal, a small agency called Julie Welch, but Julie was affiliated with the Ford agency. And that really changed my whole life because then I won the Ford contest. And so, yeah, they all said yes because I was like 7 feet tall, and 13. I was only 13 when I made those appointments. So it was crazy.
That is pretty crazy. And then I think it's crazy, like Sports Illustrated. So you're on
Yeah.
that at 15
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't on it. I was inside, but Elle McPherson got
inside.
the,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, and she deserved it. She's the bully. But I was 15, which now it's like a little chin
Yes.
scratch. Like it's that's a bit young, but I was 15 when I was in Sports Illustrated and the youngest on Vogue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. 15. Yeah, that is when you really look. There's a lot of things you look back on, whether it be like movies, TV, like some scenes or some references. And nowadays, you're like, oh,
Ye- Yeah.
was that
I
right?
mean, I was even on the cover of Wedding Bells. What? Like I wasn't legal, you know?
Yeah,
Well, how was I on the cover of Wedding Bells magazine at 15? So, some things now you look back and go, "That was inappropriate."
yeah. But I bet at that age, that must have been so cool. Obviously, it was something you wanted to do. You made those appointments, and then everything blew up.
Yeah,
And I'm sure, like at that age, just traveling, like you said, the way you were growing up, it was like, hey, this might be a way out. What were some of like the most fun
yeah.
locations you got to go to through that?
Yeah, so I worked in Thailand, and we launched the first fashion magazine to be sold behind the Iron Curtain in Russia, the former USSR. Like it was, meeting I met Gorbachev and Princess Di, and
Wow.
I traveled the world. I mean, you don't really get to see the places really because you're in the studio, or you're waking up at 4 o'clock to get the sunrise for on a beach, for instance, for Sports Illustrated. But I was really lucky. I got to see so many places.
And then along that, so you're doing that about 4 or 5 years. Was that always something that you thought about? Like, hey, let me go into acting, or was it you
Um,
saw other people do it? Because I feel like that time, a lot of like models you saw made that transition. Maybe a few years later, but definitely like
yeah.
Cindy Crawford a few years afterwards. She had a couple of big movies come out.
Yeah, it wasn't well received by my modeling agency, but I really felt I needed to just I was living with Eileen in New York, and I just felt like I needed to be on my own. I needed to grow up. I was 19, and I just finished high school, and we go to 19, and we used to in Ontario, and I just needed to get away, and then I thought, well, some models have transitioned into acting roles, right? And I looked at Sigourney Weaver and the taller actresses because Eileen said, "You're too tall. You're not going to be an actress." And so 20 years later, I was still working and I never had to waitress. I made a living acting, and I'm really glad that I did, because that also was really interesting. Also traveled the world, met amazing people, lived in different countries. So at 19, I left my modeling career and became an actor.
Yeah. Did you know anybody out in LA? Did you have any connections when you went out? No.
No, so I went out while I was still in high school, and I was looking for an apartment, and then I told this secretary, well, now personal assistant is what I guess what we say, who was working for the show Dallas, which ages me. But
Yeah.
I was auditioning for Dallas. I did meet a manager on the phone, and he said, "I'll send you out, this Hollywood manager. I'll send you out." And I was sent out on an audition for the show Dallas. And the secretary said, "Well, I'm looking for a roommate." So when I moved out to LA, I arrived in the evening, and I didn't know where I was living. She just gave me this address. And in the morning, I was on Manhattan Beach, like one block up from the beach. And I thought I had made it. Like I was living in California. It was
Yeah.
amazing, and I lucked out. It was a beautiful place to live. The only problem was there was no internet, so you had to drive in to get your scripts, and it was a lot of driving, but I did it.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. So see, that's a good connection you made. What are the chances of that
I
happening,
know.
right?
I know,
Especially
right?
that location. Like an apartment's an apartment, but to be able to be right there, that's
Yeah.
something.
We were on 28th and Manhattan Avenue, and I just thought, "Oh, New York wasn't really for me, like I was very young. It felt really loud and abrasive when you're that young. And
Yeah.
LA just was like my speed. I could go running on the beach, or I would rollerblade down, right all the way down as far as you could go from Huntington Beach to Malibu. I spent the whole day rollerblading. It's like the dream, the Californian
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah, you made the right choice. It's like that old Harrison Ford. He
Mhm.
talks about like before he went out to LA, he did a coin flip because back then it was like, hey, you go to New York to do Broadway, you go to LA if you want to be in TV and film. There was obviously that crossover because not like nothing filmed in New York and not like people didn't audition in New York. It was kind of rare. Even like I talked to William Sadler, who
Yeah,
you would think like, oh man, and it's like, yeah, he did the same thing. He was like a Broadway guy, and it was like, just hey, this is what you're doing. You have to like sort of make that choice because obviously
yeah,
Broadway is such a commitment, like how long you're doing it. So do you
yeah.
remember like your first credit on here? Again, it's probably not 100% accurate. Is Friday the 13th? Was that the first time that you were
That's
working on a
true.
set, or was there something before
That's
that?
true. That was the first, so I had done lots of commercials, but the first acting role was Friday the 13th, the series, which filmed
Yeah.
in before I moved, I believe, before I moved to LA. And I was still in high school, and I did Friday. Yeah, and I remember my face was all burnt. And
Yeah. Oh, so you did those while you were still in Toronto.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's cool.
Mhm. And I had to like one line, and I think it was my face, because I was a model in the show, and my face was all burnt, and I had prosthetics. I still have the Polaroids.
Oh, that's cool that you kept that. That's neat.
Yeah,
What were some of the commercials that you did? Was that still in Toronto or were they flying you out to
yeah,
LA to do those?
New York. I had done Diet Coke. Diet Coke with Elton John. That was in LA. But I had done car commercials in Toronto, hair commercials in New York, teeth, like close up toothpaste. We've got a big mouth. So lots of commercial roles.
That's great. Like commercial work when I talk to people, that was like, wow, you get commercials. That was a big deal back then
Yeah,
because obviously people are going to see it. I think there was only so many channels then, so your face is going to get
yeah.
seen. And also like just the money in the commercials from what other people have told me.
Yeah, so if it's a national commercial, and like the Elton John Diet Coke one was that, I
Yeah.
mean, that helped me really to live in LA for a year. And
Wow.
I did a little dance every time it was on. But no, no, when they shot in Canada, they did something called a buyout, so they wouldn't really pay, residuals. But if you did a U.S. national, then you got paid residuals, and that a lot of the big models wouldn't go to, let's say, the Diet Coke commercial because it was scale, which is the minimum. But I thought, if this thing is going to run, you get paid every 13-week cycle. So I
Uh,
did those scale commercials, and the girls, I'm telling you, they missed out. The models that said no.
well, that's good. Again, and it's working. No matter what. I know some people might be in the position to be like, oh, I don't want to. I don't know if I want to do this or that.
Mhm.
You just want to work. Get
I'm
in
like,
front of the camera, just to be able to like cut your teeth because that's the only way you get better. It's like
yeah.
one of those things. It's you're only gonna get better in front of the camera actually doing it.
Yeah, you know what? I was actually thinking about this last night because I was watching, and nothing against Keira Knightley, but how far she's come. I remember Bend It Like Beckham, and she
Yeah.
like it was her first role. It wasn't that strong. We all have those roles that we're just starting out on and learning. And now she's really grown into this formidable actor, and she's incredible. So yeah, you have to get on set, and you have to, like, you can only, I believe acting classes are fine, but I
Mhm.
really believe you learn on the job. When you have 100 crew members standing there, and you have to do it. You
Yeah. Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to do a job. So I
Because if
loved
not,
it.
people are going to be staying later or another day. So that is you can't. In a acting class, you can't feel that pressure of
Yeah.
all of these people, all of this that goes into one shot. I think that's the coolest thing about film and TV, that
Hmm.
so many things go into one shot. Even though like the camera's just on you, like say
Yeah.
you're watching a scene of yours, like there's so many other moving parts.
Um,
It's
yeah.
incredible.
Especially if there's special effects or something, that takes a whole day. And if you mess up, like, everyone's going home and you're bummed, they're bummed because you didn't get this. Thankfully, that never happened. But, at 12 o'clock at night and you mess up the shot, everyone has to come back the next day and redo it. They're not happy with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
You have to perform. It's,
yeah,
yeah, a lot of pressure.
yeah. But that's how you learn. You get better and better. And now, so like, would you say you're out in LA by 91? Like when you're on Designing Women,
Um,
when you got that role, you're already
yeah.
out there?
That was probably my first role when I moved out there, and, that also ages me, Designing Women, oh my god.
I used to
Yeah,
watch that show all the time. Was that filmed in front of a live studio audience or no?
yeah, yeah, it
Oh,
was.
see, that's pressure.
That's pressure, that's fun.
Yeah.
When I King of Queens, I got to work with Chuck Lorre, and, he's a huge, comedic, director and writer.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that was exciting, right? Because the audience is there. And I've never acted on Broadway, but it's the closest to, obviously having a live audience to being on a stage in New York. That's as close as I got, but it was fun. You feel that adrenaline, that
Yeah,
excitement.
and you can actually get I've talked to those actors that do that have done Broadway, and you're exactly right. Like you can do a Broadway play that you rehearse for 12 weeks, you do the show, when you say the joke that's supposed to get a laugh and the audience laughs, you feel that right away. But sometimes you do like a movie or a TV show, if it's not in front of a live studio audience, it could be like 6 months. Sometimes
A
movies can take a
year.
year or two,
Yeah.
and you don't know what works because you're on the next project. Obviously, you'll watch it, but you never know how it's
Yeah.
real unless you're incognito in the audience watching.
No, I wouldn't. I actually don't want. I never watched anything. I still have DVDs that I haven't watched. I can't.
Of yourself, you've never
Yeah,
watched yourself?
I can't. Like, if it came on by accident, I
Mhm.
watched King of Queens because I thought it was easy and fun. But I'm too critical and I get depressed and like, oh my god, look, I hate that line, or I could have done this. I can't watch any of it.
No, it's hard. I can understand that. Either they didn't use the take that you thought they were going to use, maybe a different angle, or maybe they cut your line all together or change things around. It's for special effects. And I talked to people with that, they can't watch it because they know, because once they're done with the movie, they're on to the next one and the next one, and then they're growing their craft. So they'll be like, oh, why didn't I do this for that?
Yeah,
So
it's
I know, I
true.
totally get that. It's hard. It's so hard
Mhm.
to look back on anything you've ever done.
And if you remember the first time you ever heard your voice on an answering machine or something, that's what it's like.
I still can't get used to my voice, but yeah.
And you've got a really cool voice, but I can't listen to myself. I can't see myself. It's just too much. And then I actually get really depressed. So I just don't watch it. And then
Just
people,
avoid it.
yeah. And then I didn't even go to this one movie screening, and I was nominated in Vancouver for Women in Film. It was called Love on the Side or
Oh,
Deluxe.
okay.
It had a couple of names, Deluxe Combo Platter. But I was nominated. I didn't even know until after. I didn't win, but it was really nice to be nominated.
Yeah, no, but you're right. It's got to be so hard to see to see yourself. I
Yeah,
totally get that. So
yeah,
now, like, at this point, it's like you're there and it takes off, like, you know, you're working, and that's the most important thing when you're acting. You're
yeah,
working so you can hone your craft. Because right after that, you're on Designing Women, DEA, and then I never seen the movie, but Fearless Tiger. That's a role that you have a name, which is a
yeah.
big deal.
It was a that was my first starring role, and it was a terrible movie. Like it was so bad. My girl, okay, I lied about not watching because one night my girlfriends, we all had to pick our worst movie, and
Oh,
we all watched our own worst project, and that was Fearless Tiger was definitely my
that's
worst.
the worst. That's
It's
that's a
really
fun night, I guess. You and your
yeah,
yeah
with just all of
friends,
my
and then like a
girlfriends who
little.
are in television, yeah. And yeah, we could laugh at ourselves because the dialogue is so bad, and I miscast like my love. I think my father-in-law was Jamie Farr from MASH, Klinger.
Oh my gosh.
I know, and my love interest came up to about here on me, and it just like nothing worked. Like no, I'm sure I also like was sad for a couple days after watching that, but it was yeah. You have to laugh at yourself, and you have to start somewhere too, you know?
Yeah, you just have to get something on, you have to get a reel. You have to get
Yeah,
something, no matter what it is, so that people would see, like, oh, okay, this is how she looks on film. Obviously, you have your commercials, you have
yeah.
your photography and like print ads and all that, but that's good.
It's
And then from there, like, it showed Tropical Heat,
oh, yeah.
Death Merchant, and then one that I think is kind of a big deal because sequels are always super important when it comes to, especially in the horror genre. Uh, you have Waxwork 2, which
That
is
was a
kind of cool. The people in that are neat.
yeah, that was really cool. So, Zach from Gremlins,
Yes.
Galligan, he and I were in Waxwork 2 Lost in Time, and sadly, the director just passed, Tony. Tony Hickox was lovely. And he passed last year, but that was a big deal because it was a role that a lot of actresses in Hollywood wanted because you got to travel through time and play different, eras. I was in space, and I was a medieval princess with Alexander Goodenough, who also has passed sadly, but it was a really great role. That was fun.
And that's a big deal. So that's going to be cool. Like when you said, so many people wanted that role,
Yeah.
and it was you that got it. And the other people, like Marina Sirtis, is in that. And it's like,
Yeah.
you think about her early movies, it's like
Yeah.
she's in this. She's in like Death Wish 3 as like just a kind of random character with a name, but
Yeah.
not a lot of lines. And then it's like, boom, Star
Yeah.
Trek, I think, not that far after this.
Yeah, and Tony would hire people that, he liked. He hired, like, Zach and his friends and Alexander Goodenough, people that he admired or he really liked, as a friend, and it was just a crazy 6 weeks or whatever we shot that in.
Yeah, and good enough, he's a legendary bad guy. He gets seen every
Yes.
Christmas in Die Hard. And
Yeah,
he has a
no,
ton of other movies, but yeah.
no. Exactly. What was the one with the Mormons or the Amish? He was in another really big one. It'll come to
Let's
me
see.
later, but Alexander Goodenough has a huge Yeah, he was lovely too.
So that's cool. That's a big deal to have that. And then the next year, another sequel,
Yeah.
not as big as a role as the other movie, but Warlock Armageddon. So I think the most important thing when it comes to it's just like keeping that momentum, because I think acting is such a momentum game. Even
Yeah.
no matter who you are, if you're somebody that is like a background or the star,
Yeah.
and again, you're just working and working.
And work begets work, right? People
Mm-hmm.
see you in something. I mean, Tony also directed Warlock. So again, he hired his friends. So I had become a friend. And then he put me in Warlock, which was a smaller role, but definitely not the lead. But and then I did a little part in Hellraiser 3, but I got cut out because he directed Hellraiser 3. So yeah, work begets work. If you just have to get out there and keep at it, and then people will see you, and then it snowballs, right? I remember
Yeah.
being in Vancouver on a set, and they took some Polaroids, and just for my wardrobe fitting, and then a director saw the Polaroids and hired me for something else. Like so, it's always important, no matter how small the role is, to just get yourself going and get out there.
Yeah, like you said, you're on a set of a movie, somebody goes, "Man, I really like working with her," or I
Yeah,
need somebody to do this one part. I need somebody that'll get it
yeah,
right." Oh, Monica. That's
yeah,
what casting directors do so much that I've talked to. They know if they have to fill in like, henchmen on bridge. Like the one lady, this lady Fern Champion, I don't know if you ever
yeah. I
worked with
do. Yeah,
her.
I do.
Okay. So her story was about Stanley Tucci.
Yeah,
Early in his career, she used to just cast Stanley as, as like the guy on dock or
yeah,
man in truck for like the first few movies. And obviously that changed for him,
yeah.
but
Yeah, so there you go. And my acting teacher at the time, I remember him saying, like, take those roles because, you don't know where it's going to lead. And it's just experience on set because then you're watching everyone else and these lead actors, you know. I got to work with Anthony LaPaglia and Mimi Rogers in a film called Killer, and Anthony was so kind and generous, and because there was a love scene, and I was young, and not comfortable, and he was like, how can I make this comfortable? And I said, can we use, because I had to straddle him, I said, can we have a pillow? He's like, sure.
yeah,
Because it's very intimate, right? And some actors are just so lovely and kind, and yeah, I remember that clearly. My first love scene was with Anthony, and he made it comfortable.
that's good. Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
that could be that could be a difficult thing.
Yeah, and everyone's standing there, the boom guy, there's, there's Grips eating a sandwich, and you're standing in your underwear. It's really awkward. Like, it's the
yeah.
most off. It's not sexy. If anyone thinks, "Oh yeah, I'd like to have a love scene with," no, I had kissing scenes with John Taylor from Duran Duran, and I was a huge Duran Duran fan. But on set, it's not romantic. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not what you
Yeah.
imagine.
No, I couldn't imagine it. Like even, yeah, no, just to be on cue, like, okay, ready, kiss, or like that's gotta be,
Oh,
I don't know. Anything
when it's
else I could probably, yeah, that's
yeah,
tough.
and it's really terrible if you don't like each other.
Ah,
Oh, that was tough. I've had a couple of those.
yeah,
Literally, you're not even looking at each other. You just like, because he's such an a-hole, and you're just like, oh my God, I have to kiss this guy. But then
yeah, that's not cool.
when the camera rolls, you just have to,
And
you
then you
know?
have to smile and everything's fine. And then when it's when they say cut, then hopefully
It,
no more take.
then you roll your eyes and walk away.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But
So 94, it kind of that was like a big deal. 94 was a big year for you. So
what?
how did was that the first time you auditioned for Bold and the Beautiful?
Yeah. So I think I auditioned and had a couple of small parts on Young and the Restless. So it goes to
Oh,
your
okay.
about meeting casting directors. And so the casting director for YNR was also Bold and the Beautiful.
Uh,
And of course I was still pretty inexperienced with, like, I had never had a series lead. But then the role came up on Bold and the Beautiful. And yeah, I had a regular gig, which was nice. But it's
yeah,
also
and was that kind of like eye opening? Just from what I talked about, like it's different being on a soap versus being on TV and film because it's kind of like, hey, we're gonna shoot 70 pages today, and
yeah,
everything's like, oh, here's your script at midnight or the night
yeah.
before for tomorrow.
It is honestly one of the hardest things I've ever done, because just what you said, if you have, some days are of course easy, you just have a couple lines and it's fluff. But then if your storyline is the main storyline and you get the script the night before and it's 40 pages, because they film an hour a day, right? Or half an hour. I can't remember if Bold and the Beautiful was half an hour, but it's, you film the whole show, not in a week like you would a sci-fi show or something. You film the whole darn thing in one day.
Yeah.
You do blocking at 6 in the morning after you've been up all night learning your lines. Then you do blocking on a bare floor. Blocking is the staging. And then you wait in your room and you're not allowed to leave. And if your scene is up at 6 o'clock at night, you're there for 12 hours waiting.
Wow.
And then you have to nail that dialogue, or well, you don't go home because no one goes home because they need the day. They need the whole scene, you know? I worked with one actor who I won't say, and he could not memorize any, like, for the love of God, he couldn't memorize anything. And we would joke with each other like, oh, so and so has a monologue today.
Oh man.
We knew we would be there forever. And
They didn't do the tricks of like putting it on the wall or having it on an actor's
no.
chest.
And the hardest thing for me was they would have you would say a line like, I'm going out to the store, but then when you came back from commercial break, they changed the line ever so slightly. Like, I just got back from the store. Like, I don't know, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know how to describe it, but it messes with your head how I
Oh, I'm
memorize
sure.
it, because you're just changing a few words. You have to just say the same thing in a different way. Not came back from the store. You'll say, I'm going to the store. And then a few minutes later, they come back from commercial and you have to say, I'm leaving for the store. And but these would be long pages and pages of alternating words. And it was a lot. Really, people make fun of actors on soaps because it's a bit dramatic and over the top. And it was, but it was actually such a good learning experience, for memorizing, for being professional, all of that.
Yeah, I think it's such an institution and it's still going on today. Like, I
Mhm,
know obviously the way people consume TV and,
mhm.
film is totally different, obviously,
Yeah.
than it was then. But it's
Yeah.
still, I think most of those shows are still on,
Are they?
which
I
is
think Bold and
crazy.
the Beautiful is gone. I think
That
Y&R is
one
on.
gone?
I think so. I haven't watched. I didn't even watch myself, but
I
I
bet you
think
didn't. Yeah, yeah. No, you didn't even watch
oh, I
yourself.
didn't.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I did come on, like when I did an interview, let's say, and they ran a clip, I'm really hard on myself. Now I go, oh, it wasn't so bad. It felt really cheesy at the time. And then I watched a couple back when I was doing an interview and it was like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I
Yeah.
think time helps you not be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, because what can you change? It's not like you're going to get in a time machine and change everything. But I get the still, no matter what, being hard on yourself for something for that long ago. I get it.
But al but also actors are the ones who are blamed, right? When you go to a film and it's terrible, like just awful, you don't say, "Oh, the screenwriter was terrible," or "the director was terrible." You say, "The actor was terrible," right? There's so much, I think the onus is it always falls to the actor because 'cause you're the face. And
Yeah.
the general public doesn't say, "Oh, that's what that editor did a terrible job. And
Yeah.
so, that actress was awful. But we have to say these lines that don't make sense when sometimes not allowed to change them or have any input. And then you're the one that gets blamed if the movie doesn't perform, Like,
Yeah, no, it's like the face of a company. No, you're right.
fearless,
It always
right?
is that. But no, from doing this podcast, like for the last almost 6 years, there's
Yeah.
so many movies that you're like, wow, these people are like, this is a really good actor. This is a really good actress. And you're like, why would they make them say that line? Or things that don't make sense. Like one thing, like what do you say in Canada when you go on vacation? Well, I kind of like gave it away, but do you say vacation or holiday?
I'm going on.
If you went
I
away
think
for a week to the beach.
I went on holiday, but I
Oh,
also
you
lived
do.
in this.
Well, you guys, well, that is British. Like you guys are like Canadian has those influences, but here it's weird when you watch a movie and for some reason they don't change that line. It's an American movie set in like Iowa or something,
Yeah.
and you'll have somebody say, "Oh yeah, I'm going on holiday next week," and it's like
And you guys don't
we
say
don't.
that?
No, we say vacation. Nobody says holiday.
And you know what bothers me about writing when you have someone who the character and the actor are, let's say, both foreign, like let's say they're Russian, and then they come out with these really American lines
Ugh,
they would never say. Because I've dated a Russian guy. He would never say, "Yo, let's pick up some brewskis and get
yeah.
and
They
then
do that
it's
with Jason Statham in a few movies. They have him play an American. He plays an LA cop in the movie Cellular, and
yeah.
he speaks he's trying to do an American accent, but it's not good. They should have just made it let him be British and just have a line of exposition. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
moved here when I was 12. That's it. Like that's all you have to do for movies that aren't serious and it's an action movie. You don't need too much to it. But
Yeah.
some movies that they just don't know how to take themselves serious, or that when they wrote it, they were like, "Oh, this is gonna be an American guy." But no, yeah, you're right. Sometimes with the writing, it is hard to get past. Like you said, that's got to be difficult. Like when you're like reading a script, and you're like, nobody would say this. Nobody talks like this.
No. I just watched a funny, I don't know who was saying it. Oh, I think it was Reese Witherspoon, but she was saying, women are always in films saying, "What do we do now?"
I just
To
saw that. I saw that.
yeah,
Yep.
that's true. I probably said that in a film, what do we do now? It's so bad,
It's so
you know?
tropey. Yeah, I know. And like I always thought that stuff was not cool, but like I have a daughter and a son, but when I had my daughter first, there were so many things you look at differently. Like
Yeah.
even like baby books, it's always like he or a
Yeah.
boy, and it's just like, okay, well, it's like 50-50 boy or girl. Like, why do we have to tailor to a boy
Yeah.
that's not even reading this book?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. It's really interesting that way.
Yeah, no. So you spot things different, like when you become a parent, or
Yeah.
you do different types of roles and stuff. So what would you say, like? Because I'm sure you got recognized before Bold and the Beautiful, just from either commercial or modeling.
Mhm.
Do you
Uh-huh.
do you remember the first time that happened, like out in public, maybe in LA, that somebody was like, "Hey, aren't you?"
Well, there was a lot of press after I won the contest in Canada. So
Oh,
it
okay.
it was intense. Like I just thought I would go to this contest and I wasn't going to win because my mom wouldn't sign the contract signing away my life. So I really thought I would just go have fun and come back and it was an experience, right? But then I won and I remember getting off the plane and there were a horde of people waiting for me and the press um and I couldn't go to the mall. Like it was intense. Like there was so much. I would go out to lunch, let's say, with my mom and I would hear people talking about me. They didn't know I was there. It was a lot of exposure.
That's a lot. No matter what age, at that young of an age, when you're already going through, like my wife's, and I remember being a teenager, but my wife's an English teacher in middle school in
Yeah.
Jersey, and it's like
Yeah.
just like how much is going on in your head and your body and everything, and then to have that at the same time.
It was a lot. It was a lot of attention.
Yeah. So
And
so
some
again, you have yeah.
survived.
Yeah, you survived totally. So The Bold and the Beautiful, you do that. It's 66 episodes. And then right from there, when that was over, again, still back to working, but you got a series like a few years later. And I think that's always the big thing. It's
Yeah.
working's great, like on everything, but when you get a series, it's just like, hey, all right, cool. Even though you can still audition for other stuff, but Beastmaster,
Yeah,
which
that
is
was
neat.
really that was really cool because I got to live in Australia and I really took the role because I wanted to work with animals and they were very kind to the animals. We had a tiger on set and we had, monk spider monkey, you know. It was really an awesome experience. I was a bit lonely because you're on the other side of the world and when you're awake, all of your friends are sleeping, Um, but I made friends over there and I'm really grateful for that. To have another show, a lead in a show was awesome.
Yeah, I interviewed Margene Holden,
Oh
and
my
she talked about
god.
how awesome of a experience that was.
Yeah, Margie. Yeah, we really bonded and she's a tall girl like me. And she it was really fun to have another female down there because there were a lot of males in the cast. And when Margene came on, we were really became good friends.
She was
Like,
cool. She was a model, and she
no.
was at Arizona State, and she acts. Did she ever tell you how she got into acting? Here's like a quick story. So she was working. She worked as a PA on like a really bad movie. I
Yeah.
don't remember the name of it. I feel like it was like a C movie while she was at ASU. And then her friend was like, "Oh, do you want to work as a PA on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?" So she goes to work
Oh.
on that. And
Oh.
they were cool with her. Hey, you can go do your modeling thing, fly back, whatever. So it was the scene when they're like, all the students are giving speeches, and the
Yeah.
one actress just couldn't get her lines. So they had to like send her off. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And
No.
she did it. She loved it. And then at that point, she's like, "You know what, man, maybe I'll go to LA. Maybe I'll think about acting." But she was like, "I don't know." And there just so happened to be somebody that worked on set that said, "Oh, I have a place in LA. I'm not going to be able to
No.
be there for 6 months. Do you want to live there?"
No way.
Crazy.
See,
Yeah.
that just gave me chills. It was Sarah. It's what you put out in the universe, and it was meant to be, right?
Yeah. No, there's
Cool.
cool stories with her. She worked at like
Yeah.
Universal on the back lot doing the tours. And then she knew Brian Thompson because he worked in like the Conan show. And then they
Yeah.
crossed paths like years later on Mortal Kombat Annihilation. So
Oh
it's
my
funny
god.
to people always, no matter what, even though I know like 1% of people, like actors, can like you can live off of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what the
You
numbers are, which is wild. But it's so crazy, like how just everybody somehow crosses paths, whether it be on a set or auditions, because there's so many
are.
actors and actresses that fit a certain type or fit a
Yeah.
certain role. But no, that's cool. That man, Australia, that's got to be cool. I understand the loneliness, but again, a place maybe. Have you ever been there before that, like through the modeling or
No.
commercials?
No. 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 It was really
Yeah,
awesome. So
yeah,
just
no, that's got to be.
talk about waking up on the beach. Like it is insane how beautiful it is. And I swam, the Great Barrier Reef and snorkeled. It was just I'm so lucky, you know, when I look back at all of those. I was that 1%. I was able to make a living, which is nice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to waitress, which is wonderful, you know?
Yeah, no, I know. It's no, I think that's yeah, it's crazy to think about. Like when you watch a show, you're like, wow, this is so cool for my entertainment. And it's like, all right, a few of those people that you're watching that show or the movie are actually able to like
Yeah,
actually
and
live
most
off
are.
of it.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, and then you see some of them, they have their side hustle, right? They have to do something else, yoga teacher or
Hmm.
receptionist, something on the side. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any like again, we're not gonna go through all the credits, but do you have a favorite? I know you mentioned like King of Queens, like we're going to Chuck Lorre, which is
Yeah.
amazing to work with somebody that is of the person. If they put a show out, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a hit. Do you have any other guest roles on TV? Because I know that could be kind of a difficult thing when you pop in for one or two. Do you have any
Yeah.
other good stories about those?
Well, I had a little cameo in a movie that I really enjoyed with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was in Junior, and
Oh my, yes.
I was his dream nurse. And, a lot of girls didn't want to take it because there weren't any lines. And then, but I got on set and actually, Ivan Reitman, the director, gave me a line. It was later, but see, you never know these small roles, right? But it was just fun to be, because I had never been on that kind of level, that kind of budget, you know, where, I mean, my tiny little role, they treated me like a princess. I had like my own like massive trailer and, two PAs running and getting me things. And I mean, it was really fancy. And then Arnold was a joy to work with. He was a little flirty, but uh, uh, I remember I had been playing a nurse and I obviously was wearing white, and I happened to have been I was so young and I made so many mistakes, but I had red underwear on, and I just didn't even think about it, right? Like, I just didn't think about it, and I'm on set then with the bright lights, and you can see the red underpants, and Arnold says to me in German, like, "Do you always wear red underpants?" I'm like, "What?" No, no, I don't. Um, and I couldn't leave. Like, I couldn't go change. So,
Yeah.
only I could see on the movie that it was a nightmare. But that was a fun cameo. That
No,
was
that's
a
cool. And that's a movie that I don't know, could they make that today? Like, what a movie! Talk about a
oh,
movie, like the writing, and I'm sure whoever wrote that is probably somebody that's wrote a lot of great things. But there's like no that. What a weird movie. The plot of that is wild.
yeah, he's having a baby. And these days trans people have babies, and
Yeah.
they
Yes.
wouldn't touch you're right, they wouldn't touch that now. But,
Yeah.
like, so, to tell you about another, which segues into 90210, I played a trans woman, and
Really?
I'm on the car. It was based on a producer's actual experience about having a one-night stand, and he wakes up, and, she has an Adam's apple. So they wrote this character, and I came back for I think 3 episodes on 90210, and I played Elle, this very tall trans woman. And one of the characters' dads, I don't remember which character's dad, but I made out with then later on with Ian Ziering on the car, and they dubbed this terrible voice. Like, they dubbed my when he finds out and he pulls this paste, like this fake breast out of my bra, and he's like, and he's screaming, and I go, "Oh, honey, like you didn't know." And they dubbed this voice. It's terrible and really way too deep for me. Yeah. But you wouldn't get away with that now because, they should have hired a trans person to play. And I
Yeah.
recognize, just full disclosure, they should have
Yeah.
hired a trans person to play that role. But they said they tried and they couldn't find anyone that was believable at the time, like as feminine as they wanted.
Yeah.
So they hired me, who's 6, 1 and some, and so big hands, big feet. And but I'm really grateful because you know, I got to meet Luke Perry and play with all of those. That show was massive. Like,
The biggest show. It's so crazy when you think about, especially back then, just again, the lack of other channels that those shows, it was like if you got on one of those shows, like people are gonna see you. Like
oh
it's
yeah,
it's appointment TV because when else are you gonna watch it? You have
yeah.
to watch it.
People still come up to me and say they remember me from 90210. My
Wow.
boyfriend at the time was not happy because he was getting razzed about it.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, is your girlfriend, a dude?" But I assure you, I've had a baby, like, myself. I'm not a dude. Which is fine. If you are. trans.
Totally.
But I got it for years. I would be at a bar and some drunk kid would be like, "Hey, I just gotta ask you."
Oh my God.
I know. And then my girlfriends would get up in their face and tell them. I just thought, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And a couple other cool series you were on, because I always think it's cool. Like, it was the big trend in the 80s, like, and I think they did it a few years ago too. It's like everything's cyclical in Hollywood. It's like they do, all right, movies are popular, let's make a series. And you were in
Yeah.
some of those cool ones. The New Addams
What?
Family,
Oh, yeah, that was
which
fun.
is neat. Police
Yeah.
Academy, the series,
Yeah, that was also
and
fun.
Total Recall.
Yes, that was cool because Total Recall had, I mean, I was a huge fan of the original and then I was in the series and it was a really excellent role. I actually did watch that one. Because I loved the writing. I liked how I looked, and they had a huge budget. They were spending, and that was unheard of back then. They were spending like $1 million on an episode,
Oh my
and that
God.
was and it was in Canada. It was a lot of money. So I am proud of that one.
No, that's
Like,
cool. I always think
yeah.
it's cool, like some of these roles that people have an opportunity to be on. Do you do accents? Because you did a video
Yeah.
game with the
Oh,
voice of Oksana Christos, a Russian.
yeah. Was it Russian? I don't
I don't know.
remember.
I'm just guessing by Oksana. I don't
No,
know.
I don't think so, but I did have, I think a French or Italian accent in, I did a show with Ryan Gosling called Breaker High, and I was, an Italian model, and I was like, I swear this is true. I didn't read the part about the accent until I missed it. I missed, I'm just learning my lines, being diligent, but I missed the one part that said Italian accent. So I think they offered me the role. I never had to audition. So I just show up. I'm ready to play the part. I know all my lines. They're like, she's Italian. I'm like, oh, okay. Molto
Oh, I
bene.
knew that.
Andiamo.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to go with it,
Yeah.
massively nervous. I wasn't ready for that.
Have you ever done that accent? Have you ever attempted something like that, or is just like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it from memory right now?
I just had to do it. Italiano, sì, molto bene. I've been to Italy, so but it was okay because it was camp. It was written really campy and
Yeah.
uh, over the top and like silly. So I could be a bit silly with it. And so it was fine in the end, I think. No
Yeah.
one said anything.
That's what it's all about. I think no matter what, even like we were talking about, like some movies when it's like, oh, obviously the actor, they're the face that you're seeing. So whether it be like the poor special effects,
Yeah.
bad direction, all of that, it's like, oh, it's on the actor. But there are some movies that I do love that everything is like that hokiness, but when the actor is like giving it their all, not saying they always don't. There's so many B movies that I love to watch because it's like you hear the line uttered and you're just like, this is so cool. Like these people are loving it. Like they don't know that
Yeah.
this is going to become like a cult film. Like even
Like,
like a Troll 2,
yeah.
like those movies, they just
Yeah.
somehow work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's like, yeah, but sometimes they fail. Like
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
gamble, right? And then your face
Yeah.
is on there. But yeah, I always wanted to see Sharknado. Like, how does that get greenlit?
Well, you said his name before. He became like a big star from it. Ian Ziering was the
I
guy
know.
that in all of them, him and what's her name? Who she looks really old. Tori, not Tori
Toy.
Spelling. What's her name from American? She's in American Pie. She has blonde hair. God, I should know her name. What is her name? But
American
yeah, she's in all those movies too. She's in every single one of them. Tara Reid, that's her name. Tara Reid.
Oh, right.
She's in all those movies too. And you know what's cool about those movies too? They have like the most random cameos. Like the one is like at a bar and it's like Gary Busey talking to, and Dee Snider plays a cowboy in one of them. So they have like
Yeah.
these random things. So it's like, at least they get it.
Yeah.
this is going to be silly,
It's gonna be silly. Yeah. Like the bear
Yeah.
movie, the one that was it Mark Wahlberg did a movie with a teddy bear?
Oh,
Um
Ted. Oh,
Ted.
yeah.
Yeah, and his wife, I didn't see it, but his wife said, like, you can't do this. This sounds terrible.
Eh,
Like a talking to and huge, like huge
yeah.
six, right? So you never know, right?
Yeah, you really don't. Especially even though it's like Seth MacFarlane, Family Guy, the guy's super successful. You're right. You never know. That could just be like, oh, this isn't funny, but it worked. They made two of them.
Yeah. You never know what's gonna hit, right?
Yeah. Oh, you never, especially for film and and music, you never know what is going to be the it thing. There's some movies you could put like a Daniel Day-Lewis, you could put all those things together, and you're like, all right, I know that there is an audience for this, but you never know what's going to be the wide range hit.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a feeling like, on the set of Junior, like it felt like this movie could be pretty funny. Like
Mhm.
this and it did. It had legs, it did well. Um,
Yeah, and you
yeah,
and you had a guy making fun of himself, and I think that's one thing that Arnold always did that
yeah,
Sly didn't. Stallone to the point he was like very serious about everything, and then that whole story with like Schwarzenegger somehow tricking him to take "Don't Stop or My Mom Will Shoot" by
yeah,
saying, "Oh, I really want to do that movie," like putting that out there. And he
yeah.
had his agent, like I don't know, it was like the Hollywood Reporter, one of those things, and then he was like, oh no, I'll do it. Like Stallone said he would do it. So no,
And then
it,
yeah, it was
yeah.
not great,
That's
right?
why I always love Arnold. He can really get the joke. Like he makes fun of his accent. And he's another one too. They always have those lines of exposition with him that he says things that somebody from Austria wouldn't say. Like
Right.
he'll say these silly kind of
And
lines and it's like,
it would
but
never.
he gets it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. 'Cause my family is German and they don't like and on the border, my family's from the border of Austria and Germany and, near Salzburg, and they don't say a lot of those things,
Yeah.
that Arnold does in movies. But I like he doesn't try to do an American accent or it's just him. It's just never, right? It's just he
Never.
that's where he's more of a personality than I think in the beginning anyway, than an actor, right? Like he was
Yeah.
big personality and hired for his literally his big person and his size.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he made a
Oh
massive
man.
career out of it.
Oh my god, yeah. So many like he was another guy, like every movie was a hit. And even the ones that aren't a hit, if you go back and watch them, it's like, oh, this one should have been a hit. Maybe it's just the timing of it, like Red Heat,
Yeah,
like some of these movies that people don't think of as much. And it's
yeah,
like, all right, this guy, like no matter what. And then he had his thing, like I guess after like Batman and Robin, even though he got paid the most ever, he got like super depressed because it wasn't a hit. And then he kind of but no, it's something. And
yeah,
one more credit, and then I'll start wrapping this up because I always love to ask a few questions before
yeah,
it's
yeah,
done. Is I
yeah,
always think it's cool when these movies come out, like these sequels. Again, maybe when you look back on it, I haven't watched it yet, but I just think about the people that are in it. I think it's always a cool combination. For Turbulence 3, like a
yeah,
guy like Craig Sheffer and Joe Mantegna, like those are two guys that I think are such great working actors, and I feel like
yeah.
they're always working.
And Rutger Hauer.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Rucker Hauer's in that. Yeah, I interviewed Brad Lorry, who's a stunt guy. I guess he had a line he had lines in this movie, but he played Michael Myers like a few years after this. But
oh
he was
wow.
a he yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. But my scenes were with Rutger Hauer, and I remember he for one time he forgot his lines, and it was on my close up, which in acting is like a no no. You should be there for the other actor while they're doing
Mhm.
their side, their close up. But he was so charming. He just said because he didn't know his line. He goes, "Shine, baby, shine," and I just smiled and I said my line and it worked, right? Because he had no idea what he was supposed to say. And That was a fun one. But I'll tell you what's terrible about that movie, which I only thought of years later after 9/11. It was about us hijacking a plane and running it into a building. Like, it was terrible. Looking back now, these films would not be made, right? Like,
Oh, and that came out just before 9/11.
a long time
Came out in
before.
2001. I don't know what the release date is, but I know that's pretty crazy.
Was it?
Yeah, it came out in 2001, and that's when 9/11 was. I don't know when it did, but I
Oh,
know a few movies that came out right after it. They
uh,
edited out
all of that stuff.
all
Yeah.
plane
Sure.
or crash scenes, or
Yeah.
Spider-Man. They had to go back and re-edit, like take out the Twin Towers.
Yeah. Terrible. But
Insane. Even though like being in Jersey, like I am close to New York.
yeah.
Not close enough, obviously, to see the towers, like from where I went to
Yeah.
high school. Like if we went to like a higher point, you could see stuff. I remember like seeing the smoke. That was like pretty
You
insane.
know, even though I wasn't here, I was in Australia with Margene. Um,
Ah,
she called me at like 4 in the morning and told me, and that she just said, "You'll never forget where you were when you heard, right?" And
mhm.
Margene said the Twin Towers are gone. But it didn't even sound real. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? It was crazy, a crazy time.
I was in freshman French class,
Wow.
and like being a kid, like there's rumors about everything. But
Yeah.
when that happened, it was like, yeah. And then the next period, it was like, yeah, the serious, because it's not like we had TV. It's not like they were gonna show us
Oh,
anything. But
no,
yeah, that was
it was a crazy,
crazy.
terrible time.
Yeah. So this is a lot of fun. Here's what you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, but I always love to hear about folks because when you're in the moment of things, you never know. Hey, I should save something. This is an important thing. Sometimes it's like you're so in the moment, it's so
Yeah.
hard to remember to grab something. But you said you kept mementos early on, like on
Mm.
your first few sets.
Um, I wasn't allowed to keep any, they don't let you really keep the costumes and stuff because if they have to do pickups later or,
Mhm.
which is a, redo. I have all of the DVD. I kept all of my pictures, all of the notes from actors. I have John Taylor. He left me a voice message on, back then it would have been on my answering machine, like on a cassette. And
Yeah.
he's like, I kept stuff like that he said it was nice working with me um but other than that, I don't have any props or anything.
Oh, I think the thing you mentioned was the Polaroid from Friday the 13th. Is
Oh,
that
I
what you
have all
said
of
you
the
had?
pictures. Yeah. I have
That's what I
all.
mean. I think that's really cool. I haven't talked to a lot of people that keep those. Most of
Yeah.
the time it's like scripts. So I think that's neat because that's
Oh,
like, you know, obviously you have, being an actress, doing the modeling, there's like, you can always look back. Obviously you have photo albums of yourself and there's family photos to look back on. I think it's so interesting when it comes to like being in a career that there's pictures and film of you everywhere. You can always go back and be like, hey, what was it like? What was I like in 95?
yeah.
Let me put this movie on, or let me look at this commercial or photo shoot. So it's cool that you have those Polaroids to be able to
I
look
was
back on.
always really good at documenting that stuff because, my time was before the internet. And so my diaries have all of the Polaroids from when I was shot by famous photographers, and they would throw them out in the trash. And then when they weren't looking, I'd grab the Polaroids and I cut them up and I put them in my diaries. And I have all of the Polaroids from my shows. And I really documented everything um, with pictures. I don't have the scripts, but I have all the photos and,
And that's cool.
DVDs. Yeah.
And have a little like telling of it with a diary, like remembering things
Yeah.
from that day, especially right afterwards. No, that's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
What were some, if you didn't do modeling and then
Yeah.
transition to acting, like if somebody did say, oh, she should be a model, uh,
What
what do
would
you
I
think you would have done? Like right out of like high school?
Yeah, so I had good marks in science and math, and I wanted to go to medical school. And I don't think now in hindsight it would have been my calling because I would get too emotionally involved with each case. But um, something in the helping people, my sister's a nurse. I really I I have a great respect for someone who devotes their whole life to helping people. Um, Maybe something like in the medical field, but the pressure
Yeah, that's
of,
tough.
yeah, that's a tough gig. You have to be really strong. It's a good
Oh yeah,
question.
just the emotional thing, like remembering everything obviously is tough, but I think the
Mhm.
emotional connection, if you're in a part of the hospital that sometimes people don't make it,
Yeah,
I
I
couldn't
don't
imagine
think I
that.
could do that. But maybe research, science and research and finding a cure for something, or it would have been interesting. I was talking to a
Yeah.
cop today, and he's on a medical leave because he's had to deal with so much stress, right, from what he's seen. And I said, "Yeah, I couldn't do that job." I thought to myself, I couldn't do that either. All the,
Yeah.
dealing with children, and they are the people that we are meant to protect, And yeah, that would mess me up too, but I hope now in my fourth, fifth career that I can find something where I really do want to help, women and children in some way. Like there's a shelter here in Collingwood that I support called My Friend's House. And when women are leaving domestic violence situations, I'd like to do so. I'd like to come back to my original plan of helping people somehow.
Yeah, no, that's big. When we lived in Portland, Oregon, we used to do we need to do more of that out here, but we were living in Portland, we used to like collect like kits because again, it's like it's just the emotional thing that people go through in like relationships like that. It's you just don't know where to turn. And sometimes it's like, well, then I won't have these things, like these core things you need to get through day to day. And it could be as simple as shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, like razors and stuff. People don't think about that.
Yeah, that's really lovely. We should do that more here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Well, it's been so much fun. I had such a
Yeah.
blast. One thing I have to comment on, and I think I love the one thing I love about Canada, I've probably talked to like 5 or 6 Canadian actors and folks behind the camera. I love the idea of the night, like you said, like, oh, we go to school till 19. But isn't that 19th year like kind of like you're able to try to figure things out a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's cool. Like that in between
Yeah.
college and high school, it sort of is, right?
Yeah, they actually got rid of OACs. They were called Ontario Academic Credits, but now, I really think it's too much pressure to figure out what you want to do at
Yeah.
18 with your whole entire life. I do like what they do in England and elsewhere with a gap year. You can take a year out, you can go apprentice somewhere and figure out if the area that you want to study is actually enjoyable for you because
Yeah.
you get into it and realize that it's not. So that
I
makes a
know.
whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, with the cost of tuition. Like I didn't go back to school until later in life. I
Yeah,
was
me
almost
too.
going to go to school. I started like county college
Mhm.
when I was 19. I was going to transfer to the school to play golf at. I'm so happy that didn't work out then because that school was like 50 grand a year back in 2005. So like I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine paying back $200,000 in loans. Now it's
You
insane.
would still be paying them.
Oh, 100%. I went online. I went like the cheapest route in order to get my degree the fastest. And it
Yeah.
was the smartest thing I could have done. But
Good.
yeah,
Good
I'm
for you.
glad we connected. This is so much
Yeah.
fun.
This was
It's
so
always fun to hear folks' beginnings because this is such a unique career. Even like your first foray, like modeling. It's
yeah.
like you said, it's not like you wake up. There might be some people out there that say, you know what, I really want to do modeling or I really want to do acting. But I'm telling you, there's so many people. It's like they don't think about it until like that moment. Maybe they do like the Peter Pan play in elementary school or something in
Yeah.
middle school, but it's always like they get put it's like you said, it's like serendipitous, like, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do this play because the girl I like is in it." And then it's like, "Oh, I love this. Now I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life." I think it's such a fascinating calling.
Yeah, it is. And I think once you catch the bug, once you've been on set, you can never have a regular job because it is,
Yeah.
there's nothing like it. You don't have to go to the same place every day. An office job would kill me.
Yeah.
I got to be on different sets and every day you go to a different location, different people. You meet the most interesting actors, and idols. So, yeah, it's funny how things happen, and I'm so glad I did it. I don't regret it at all. Like I don't, the roles petered out, like, and I stopped acting during COVID, but
Yeah.
I don't have any regrets. I don't have any desire to go back. I think it's harder for women as you age to go back in
Oh,
front of,
yeah.
um, but I look back at it all very fondly.
It's not fair. Like, I helped an actor real quick. This guy, Larry Henkin, he hated the idea of how they would age women out. Like, he talked about like a few women, that actresses that he knew, and they were still young, but as soon as like you hit 30, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
now you're gonna be the mom. And then you see these movies, it's like, I don't know, maybe just some people think it's like reality, but it's like, oh wow, that same male actor I've seen for 40 years is always dating a woman the same age. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
this isn't
true.
real life.
No, it's funny. The men they can be heavy, they can age. When I look at Friends, for instance, it's one of those with three women, the main characters had gained 30 pounds. And, like I think Matthew Perry gained a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
And like, that would have been all over the tabloids for a woman, but it was barely, like, noticeable for a man. I think women have it just much, much harder in front of the
Yeah,
camera.
it's ridiculous. Yeah, he gained all the weight, and then he had his, what his addiction, then he was like really skinny, and it's like,
Yeah.
you're right. If that was a woman, it'd be like, hey, what's going on with her? With him, it's like, oh, that's the funny guy, which
Yeah,
it's that double standard.
he gained some weight. That would never, for a woman, that they would be
Yeah.
calling her agent. They would be threatening her contract. Like, you have no idea how much pressure there is, yeah, on
Yeah,
women. It's much
it's
more.
insane. Hopefully that's something that changes 2024 on. It'd be
I hope.
nice for some of those changes. But Monica, thank you. I had a
Yeah,
blast
thank
talking to you.
you.
I'm
It
so
was
happy
so
we
nice,
connected.
nice talking to you. Thank you for being patient with me.
No
Thank
worries. I get it. I totally get it. Have a great
you.
rest of your night. I'll let you know when this comes out.
Okay, thanks. Good night.
Arnold, man, what a funny story. Like how he's kind of flirty on the movie and being kind of like cheeky with her, and very, very, very amazing. And how about like taking a role like she didn't know that she had to have an accent, and she had to throw an Italian accent at the last second. Yeah, Monica was so cool. It was really cool to hear her insight. Again, being a model at that young of an age, because again, it was a different time. Obviously, looking back, it's like, oh, was it really a different time? Just things were really different the way society viewed different aspects. But it was cool that she kept like again her Polaroids from Friday the 13th, the TV series, and little like trinkets and scripts along the way. But now she was a lot of fun. And now your homework, just good homework. I'm not a teacher saying, oh, you got to write a paper. You get to watch Turbulence 3 Heavy Metal, which, man, I cannot wait to watch it. Obviously, Monica talked about an experience with Rucker Hauer. That was, he just forgot his lines, but he was like championing her, like, you got this, you can do this. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's free on Tubi, a few other streaming services, but you know how much we love Tubi. It's the best. So check it out. And don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.